My name is Donna. I am 33 years old. Before I met Jason, my life was quiet, predictable. I worked at a small pharmacy downtown. I rented a modest apartment and spent most nights alone watching TV with a glass of cheap wine. I wasn't unhappy, just numb, I guess, like I had accepted that this was it, life. Then he walked in one rainy afternoon, soaked from head to toe, trying to dry his glasses with the corner of his t-shirt. He had come to pick up some toiletries, a tube of toothpaste, and a bottle of Coke. I remember how he smiled apologetically, awkwardly, and how something about him made me want to smile back. Jason wasn't like the other guys I had dated. He didn't have a fancy car, didn't wear flashy clothes, didn't talk big. He was soft-spoken, thoughtful. He listened, not just with his ears, but with his whole being, and slowly, without even trying, he became a part of my everyday life. We started small, coffee dates, late-night walks, sharing cheap burgers and laughter that echoed down quiet streets. He did freelance jobs just to survive. He had big dreams, though. He talked about building things, apps, platforms, ideas that could change the world. I used to laugh when he said those things, not because I didn't believe him, but because I couldn't imagine the world ever making space for someone as kind and genuine as Jason. But he believed in himself even when no one else did, and that was enough for me. Even when he had no money for proper meals, or when his laptop crashed and he cried on my couch, thinking it was the end, I held him then. I told him it would be okay. I believed in him. At least I thought I did. We were together for almost 3 years, through cold nights without heating, through birthdays we couldn't afford to celebrate, through long hours and longer silences when the weight of the world felt too heavy. But somewhere along the way, I started to change. It wasn't sudden, it was slow, quiet, dangerous. I started comparing friends who got engaged, coworkers who posted vacation pictures with boyfriends who could afford Paris and Prada, and me, still waiting tables on weekends to help pay rent, still splitting groceries, still hoping his big break would come someday. I loved him. I truly did. But I started wanting more than just love. I wanted comfort, security, a life that didn't feel like a constant struggle. And that's when I began pulling away, one excuse at a time. I didn't know then what it would cost me. I didn't know the price of walking away from a man who gave me everything he had, even when he had so little. But I would find out, and by then, it would be too late. I didn't leave him all at once. It started slowly, almost quietly. At first, it was the way I stopped calling him babe without even realizing it. Then it became me, choosing silence over conversations, shutting down instead of opening up. I told myself I was just tired, but deep down, something was shifting. I still loved Jason. He had this gentle way of looking at me, like I was his whole world. But the truth is, I started to feel like I was waiting for a life that might never come. His clothes were always a little faded. His shoes had that one tear at the side. He never seemed to care. But I did. I started noticing the differences between him and other men, between the life we had and the life I wanted. At work, my friends would ask, "You're still with that guy who's trying to start something online?" And I'd laugh it off, but their words stayed with me. I began scrolling through social media more than I used to, Everyone seemed to be moving ahead, weddings, vacations, promotions, and there I was, dating a man who couldn't even take me out to dinner without checking his account balance twice. I hated myself for thinking like that, but I still thought it. Jason noticed. One night, he looked at me across the kitchen table. The light was dim, and we were eating toast for dinner because that's all he had left in the fridge. He smiled at me and said, "Are you okay, Donna? You've been quiet lately." I looked up. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just work stuff. I'm fine," he nodded. But that night, I felt something crack inside me. I wasn't fine. I was slowly pulling away from the one person who loved me without needing me to be anything more than myself. Then came the night he told me about his new idea. He was excited, his eyes bright, his hands moving as he explained it to me. It was a software tool, something about automation for small businesses. He had been working on it for weeks, barely sleeping. "I think this could really work, Donna," he said. "I feel it this time." I smiled, I nodded. I even said, "That sounds amazing, babe." But all I could think about was how tired I was, how long I had been waiting, how far I felt from the girl who once believed in his dreams as much as he did. That night, I lay beside him in silence, my back turned, staring at the wall. He fell asleep quickly, like he always did when he felt hopeful. And I stared at the ceiling, wondering how long I could keep pretending. One night, Jason was sitting at the small table in our living room, his laptop open, papers scattered. He was working late again, trying to figure out how to pitch his idea to a new investor. I watched him from the bedroom doorway, my heart beating slow and heavy in my chest. He looked tired, worn out, but still hopeful, still fighting. And I felt like I was already gone. For weeks, I had been thinking about it. I told myself I needed space, that we were in different places, that love wasn't enough anymore. I wanted more stability, more answers, more certainty. I was 33. I couldn't afford to keep waiting on maybes. I didn't hate Jason. That was the hardest part. I loved him, but I didn't believe in him the way he believed in himself. I wish I had. I wish I had held on a little longer. But that night, something inside me just broke. "Jason," I said softly. He looked up, surprised by my voice. "Yeah, babe?" I walked over and sat across from him. I didn't touch his hand. I didn't smile. I just looked at him, and I think he knew. His eyes searched mine. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "I don't think I can do this anymore." He froze, his hand stilled over the keyboard. "What do you mean?" "I mean us," I whispered. "This life, I feel stuck, Jason. I feel like I'm waiting for something that might never come." He didn't say anything right away. He just sat back in the chair, breathing quietly. Then he nodded once. "Is this about money?" "No," I said quickly. "Not just that, it's everything. I feel like I'm losing myself, like I'm falling behind. I want to believe in your dreams, but I'm tired. I'm scared." His eyes were wet, not crying, just holding something in. "Okay," he said after a long pause. "If you need to go, I won't stop you." I stared at him, not knowing what I had expected. He stood up, walked into our bedroom, and brought out my bag. He put it on the couch and gently said, "Take what you need." And I did. I packed slowly with shaking hands. I looked around at all the little pieces of us, the books we bought together, the photo frame from our first trip, the mug he got me on my birthday. I left most of it behind. Before I walked out the door, he said, "You were my reason, Donna. You still are." I didn't answer. I couldn't. What would I have said? That night I slept at a friend's place. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my chest tight and empty. I told myself I did the right thing, that I was protecting my future. But deep down, something in me already knew I had just let go of the best thing I ever had. The days after I left felt strange, not freeing, not peaceful, just hollow. I thought I'd feel lighter, like a burden had been lifted. Instead, my chest ached constantly. Every little thing reminded me of him. His laugh, his calm voice, the way he used to say, "Don't worry, Donna, I've got us." I checked my phone more times than I care to admit. I kept expecting a message, a call, something, but Jason didn't reach out. Not once. It was like I had disappeared and he had accepted it, or maybe he was hurting too, but choosing silence. I moved into a small apartment far from where we used to live so that I can start afresh. It was quiet. Too quiet. I tried to fill my time with work, errands, dinners with friends, but everything felt forced. Even smiling felt fake. I told everyone I left because I needed more. That Jason was a good man, but I just didn't see a future with him anymore. But late at night, when it was just me and the silence, the truth would creep in. I left because I was scared. Scared he'd never make it. Scared I'd waste my best years hoping. Scared to hold on while the world moved past us. And now I was alone with that fear and a new one. What if I gave up too soon? A few weeks later, I ran into a mutual friend, Chris. He didn't know I had left. When I told him, his eyes widened. "Jason's still working day and night," he said. "He barely comes out anymore. Says he's close to something big." Chris added, "He doesn't talk about you much, just said he hopes you're okay." That crushed me. I wanted him to miss me like I missed him, to be angry, to be heartbroken. But instead, he was quiet, respectful, still kind. It made me miss him even more. The hardest part wasn't the loneliness. It was knowing I had left someone who never stopped believing in us, even when I did. And now I was beginning to wonder, what if he was right all along? What if I just walked away from the kind of love most people spend a lifetime searching for? It had been a very long time after we broke up. I wasn't expecting to see him that day. I had stepped out to grab lunch, just trying to clear my head. Work had been draining, and my thoughts had been heavier than usual. Jason's name had popped into my mind earlier that morning, like it still does sometimes, but I pushed it away, or at least I thought I did. I was standing in line at a new cafe downtown, a warm, quiet place filled with soft jazz and the smell of fresh coffee. I remember looking down at my phone, scrolling through nothing really, just trying to pass the time. Then I looked up, and there he was, Jason. I froze. He looked different, not just physically, but something about his presence had shifted. He stood taller, carried himself with calm confidence. He was wearing a navy blue suit, tailored, clean, expensive looking. His beard was trimmed, his hair neatly cut, and he smiled at the barista with this relaxed ease that I had never seen before. There was a woman with him. She was laughing at something he said, holding a takeaway cup. I don't know if they were together. Maybe they weren't, but it didn't matter. My heart dropped anyway. He hadn't seen me yet. Time paused. We stared at each other for a second too long. I couldn't read his face. He wasn't angry, not cold, just distant. As if I were someone he used to know. He gave a small nod, a polite, empty kind of smile. Then he turned back to the woman beside him, and just like that, he was gone. I stood there still holding my phone, my body suddenly heavy, the room felt smaller, the walls closer. Was that really Jason? The same man I once begged to be more, the same man I left because I couldn't wait, he had become more. More than I imagined, more than I ever gave him credit for, and now he didn't need me anymore. That realization broke something in me. Not because I wanted his money, not because he looked successful, but because he had finally become the man he always believed he could be, and I wasn't there to see it happen. I left before his breakthrough. I walked away from a storm that was almost over, and now the sun was shining, but I wasn't part of his sky anymore. I sat down at a table and let my coffee go cold. There were tears in my eyes I didn't want anyone to see. For the first time, I whispered something to myself I had never dared say out loud. I made the biggest mistake of my life, and deep inside I knew it was true. I left the cafe that afternoon with a broken heart. There was a hollow ache in my chest, and as I walked home, I felt completely empty, burdened with regret and pain I couldn't put into words. In the days that followed, I couldn't escape it. The memory of him replayed in my mind like a movie I didn't ask to watch. His eyes, his calm voice, the quiet sadness between us. A week later, my friend Amy invited me to an event. I had almost said no to the invitation. It was a business networking party full of people I didn't really care for. But something pushed me to go. Maybe boredom, maybe the small, quiet hope that life might surprise me. It did. I saw him the moment I stepped into the hall. Jason. He stood in the middle of a small circle of men in suits, laughing, confident, magnetic. His smile was effortless, like it belonged on a magazine cover. His name echoed in the room more than once. People were praising him, asking him for advice, offering handshakes, like he was the star of the evening. He was. I froze. Again, he hadn't seen me yet, and for a moment I was thankful. I stepped aside, hiding behind a group of strangers, trying to catch my breath. He looked so different. No longer the quiet, struggling man who used to sketch dreams on napkins at our tiny kitchen table. He was someone else now, bigger, sharper, complete. I felt small, swallowed by the weight of my thoughts. Then a soft voice pulled me back. "Donna?" I turned slowly. Jason was standing right in front of me. My mouth went dry. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, still deep and careful, but his eyes, they didn't hold that softness anymore. Not for me. He smiled, politely, not warmly, just polite. "Hi," whispered, barely able to meet his eyes. He nodded. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "I didn't expect to see you either," I said, and laughed nervously. We stood there, awkward silence thick between us. "I've heard about your company. Congratulations, you really did it," I finally said. "Thank you," he replied. His tone was kind, but there was a wall. I wanted to say more, to explain, to tell him how many times I had replayed our last day together in my head, how many times I wished I'd stayed, how I missed him. But I couldn't, because standing next to him now was her. She was stunning, elegant, the kind of beauty that didn't try too hard. She looked at him like he was her world, and he looked back at her like she was home. My heart cracked in a way I didn't know it still could. "This is Alina," he said softly. "My wife?" Wife. The word hit me harder than I expected. I managed to smile. "Nice to meet you," I said with a weak smile. She was gracious. She had no idea who I was to him, and somehow that made it worse. "I should go," I said quickly. Jason nodded again. No protest, no questions. No sign that he felt anything seeing me again. He had moved on and hadn't. I left the party early. My chest felt hollow. I sat in my car for almost 30 minutes before driving home. My makeup was ruined by tears, but I didn't care. That night, I realized something painful. It wasn't just that I had lost Jason. It was that I had lost the version of me who still believed I was worthy of love, and I didn't know how to get her back. I didn't expect it to hurt this long. I thought time would dull the ache. That eventually I'd wake up and not think about him first thing in the morning. That I'd stop replaying the past in my head, stop wondering what could have been if I just stayed. But some memories, they live in you. Like the way he used to call me my girl when he was tired, or how he'd brush my hair behind my ear when I was upset without saying a word. It's not the big moments I miss. It's the small ones, the quiet ones, the kind that made me feel like I belonged somewhere with him. I've tried to move on. I've gone on dates, smiled at new faces, laughed at strangers' jokes, but nobody makes me feel what he did. Safe, seen, steady. And the hardest part, he did become everything he promised me he would. He's successful now, confident, respected, the version of him I couldn't wait for. The version I was too impatient, too scared to believe in. And now it's not my place to say anything. He's living a life that no longer includes me. Maybe he's in love. Maybe he wakes up beside someone who never doubted him, someone who stayed. I won't interrupt that. But I needed to close this chapter in my own heart. So I took all the photos, the birthday cards, everything that held his name, and I packed them away. Not out of anger, but because I need to make space for peace. He was a beautiful part of my life, even if it ended in silence, even if it's not what I hoped for, I still carry the love. But I'm learning not to carry the guilt. He made it, and maybe that's enough. Not because I had anything to do with it, but because in some quiet way I always wanted the best for him, even if I couldn't be beside him to see it happen. This isn't a fairy tale, it's not a reunion story, it's just a goodbye. I never said out loud, and maybe that's okay. Sometimes in life, we don't realize the weight of our choices until much later, when silence replaces laughter and memories become the only place we can visit someone we once loved deeply. This story isn't just about regret, it's about growth, and how sometimes love teaches us the hardest lessons. Not every goodbye comes with closure. And not every ending is meant to be tied with a neat ribbon. But even through pain, we learn, we become more aware of the kind of love we deserve and the kind of love we want to give. If you've ever let go of someone too soon, or watched them become everything you once believed they could be, know that you're not alone. Forgive yourself, feel it fully, then little by little let it go. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share it with your friends. For more emotional and inspiring stories, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.